Hi, my name is Braden Shields, and today I'll be presenting to you on why you should always wear your seatbelt when you're behind the wheel of a car. Well, when I was 16, I got in a car wreck, and if it weren't for my seatbelt, I probably would have been thrown through the driver's side window. At least that's what the cops and the firefighters told me. And my goal here is to inform young drivers, those in college, which is my target audience here, and just inform young drivers of the dangers of not wearing your seatbelt and why it's just practically unsafe to get behind the wheel of a vehicle and drive anywhere. And from the top driver education blog, seatbelts, for one, they save you money when reducing traffic tickets for getting pulled over for not wearing your seatbelt. And the seatbelt is also the number one thing that you can wear, the number one thing in your car that you can do/wear to prevent yourself from getting injured or dying in an accident. I mean, sometimes injury is just unavoidable, and so are fatal accidents, but your seatbelt reduces that risk by 25 times when you're properly wearing your seatbelt. And to wear your seatbelt, it needs to be snug over the chest and low on the hips to keep you planted in your driver's seat in the event of an accident. And airbags aren't near as effective if you're not wearing your seatbelt. There's no point. The airbags were not designed to work without a seatbelt in conjunction. They weren't designed on test dummies that weren't strapped into their seats. Airbags were designed in mind that you would be planted in your seat, strapped in with your safety belt, and you wouldn't not moving, so that your airbag could do its job and deploy properly in the event of an accident. And from the Oklahoma State University of State Training, yes, your seatbelt must be worn properly at all times, and it doesn't matter the length of the trip. Most fatal wrecks happen within 25 miles of your home. And believe it or not, it's not on long road trips that you hear the most accidents. Most accidents happen to people on their way to work or on their way to the store, just on a short trip where they don't even think to put on their seatbelt because it's just such a short drive and a short ride. And also most fatal traffic accidents happen when you're not wearing your seatbelt at under 40 miles an hour, not out on the interstate doing 75 or 80 miles an hour. Most traffic accidents happen in suburban areas, stoplights, a lot of stop signs, a lot of stop and go traffic at around 30 to 40 miles an hour, as opposed to being out and going fast on the highway. Of course, there are those fatal accidents out on the highway, but the majority of them are going to come from your suburban areas where the speed limits are not that high. Airbags used in conjunction with your seatbelt also increase the seatbelt's effectiveness by 40%, as opposed to not wearing your seatbelt at all, which increases your likelihood of dying in a crash by 25 times. And from V-Drive USA, seatbelts will keep you from going through the front windshield due to the law of inertia. The law of inertia being that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, but then an object in motion will stay in motion unless an outside force is acted upon it. So when you come into contact with another vehicle and you collide, the force of inertia will send you forward, and if there's nothing to stop you, such as a seatbelt, you will continue to go through the windshield in the event of a head-on collision or a side collision. You'll go through the side window or a rear end. You might go into the back seat, but you also don't even have to exit the vehicle in order for it to be a serious accident if you're not wearing your seatbelt. In a wreck, you can bounce around your car and hit yourself on the steering wheel, on the roof. You can wind up in the trunk if you're unlucky. But your seatbelt's designed to keep you planted in the seat. I know I've said that, but it's just a reiterating point that your seatbelt will keep you in the seat. That's where you're safest. And if you're not wearing a seatbelt, say you're bouncing around the car, you can be knocked unconscious in the event of say your vehicle is in water or your vehicle is on fire and you're unconscious. Then you're not going to be able to be alert and awake and remove yourself from the situation if you're able to. Instead, the likelihood of you dying will be much greater because you'll be unconscious and unaware of those hazards that are around you. And seatbelts, seatbelts just I mean, you can't predict what other drivers are doing. So your seatbelt is just a safety measure. You can't predict whether someone's drunk behind the wheel, or you can't predict whether someone's texting on their phone, or you can't predict whether someone doesn't even have a license or doesn't even belong behind the wheel. You can't predict what's going to happen. So your seatbelt is just that safety measure in case something does happen. That's what all safety measures are for, or just in case. I mean, your seatbelt's one of the most important ones, in my opinion, that's ever come around. It's just in case something happens, in case that drunk driver slams into you, or that person who's texting runs into you, or even the aggressive driver that runs you off the road and causes you to roll over. If you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're not going to stay in the driver's seat the whole time. You're going to wind up who knows where. And that place is likely to be in a morgue if you're unlucky and if you're not wearing your seatbelt. And in conclusion, what I want you to take away from this is that I want you to leave here with just the new appreciation and just knowledge of safety. In that, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, bad things happen when wrecks happen. Like I said, you can be thrown through the windshield, thrown through the side, thrown around the car. I want you to take away from this is that you leave here with just a new appreciation for safety and just my overall concern for young drivers of my age or younger or older. And just my concern for safety, in that going forward, this is just a good habit to practice so that you're a safe driver and so that you provide a good example for future drivers. I remember when I was little, my uncle would never wear a seatbelt, and I always wondered that. But then, of course, I got in my parents' car and I started not wearing my seatbelt, and my parents got on me for it. And so yes, older, I mean, like even kids, people my age, they're examples for younger drivers, 10, 12, 13, 14, even those that just got their permit at 15. You always just need to be a good example for those young drivers. Yes, I hope you take away from this just a knowledge and appreciation for safety when you get behind the wheel of an automobile, because you never know what's going to happen, but it's always best to be prepared. And cut.